They came from that movement. They hung out with the rude boys, they hung out, you know, in the Jamaican dance halls, and they listened to the music and so on and so forth. But what happened in the mid-70s, there was a real bad economic problems that were occurring in Britain. And if you watch anything on the news, they were talking about riots and so on and so forth. So the whites were angry. You know, we're getting our jobs taken away, we have no money, and it's all because of the blacks, it's all because of the immigrants, it's all because of the Pakistanis, etc., etc., etc. So they started drifting towards the neo-Nazi movement. They had groups such as the British, what they would call back then the National Front, which is today now the BNP, the British National Party. And so they drifted towards them. And you had, through this, you had people that were in the forefront of the skinhead movement, people like an individual by the name of, his name was Ian Stewart Donaldson. He was the lead singer of a very prolific white supremacist rock band called Screwdriver. And so with this music, and I bear witness, this music talked about the struggle of the white man, what the return of St. George to, you know, slay the dragon, and we're gonna come back and we're gonna take our land and Europe is gonna awake. And this was gonna happen. We gotta drive the savage hordes out of Britain, which spread into Europe, which then came across to America. And so you have, you know, there are groups that are still around today. There are groups that sing these praises and stuff, and it's vile. Wallahi, it's vile. It's vile what they say. You know, and it's you know, you get groups like, their names are such as Brutal Attack, Skullhead, No Remorse. You got groups over here out of Detroit, a group called the Angry Aryans. Out of Dearborn, because they're in contrast to what? The high influx of Muslims that are in Dearborn. So you have all these kind of groups like that. And so, you know, this basically moved on over here. Back in the 80s, you remember, everybody remembers the Geraldo and Oprah incidences, you know what I'm saying? And you also had two competing skinhead groups, the non-racist and the racist one. But unfortunately, even in the non-racist skinhead movement, they still harbored some bigotries, such as anti-immigrant, and you know, even anti, you know, today Muslim, etc., etc. And so we can't be really delusioned to think that these people are, you know, so sympathetic to, you know, the Muslims. And then so you had groups that came out, very strong groups such as the White Aryan Resistance, the American Front, obviously the Aryan Youth Movement, and then you had other groups like the Aryan Nations. And from the Aryan Nations, you had in the early 80s, you had a group called The Order that was going around and robbing banks and doing stick-ups to fund a white revolution. So this is what they do. So this is what they do. So this is a little background to this, so you have an idea of what you're dealing with, because this is around today. They got things on National Geographic. They got things on Gangland. They got things all on the news. So to think that they're not targeting, you know, the Muslims, you're naive. You're asleep. You got to wake up. So what are some of their methods that they use? The first thing they do is among the groups, they always claim to be innocent of members' crimes. They always say he was once a member, or he came to one of our meetings, or he was never a member of our group. And this may be true, but they always hint to an individual as being a lone wolf. And that's what this guy was back in Wisconsin. He was what they call a lone wolf. They sit down, they lay it out, he plays it out. And then he goes out and he commits these atrocities. And sometimes he's inspired by the ideas and teachings of the group, but this goes out on his own to do the crime. For example, back in the late 80s, you had in Portland, where an Ethiopian immigrant was attacked and killed by skinheads associated with the White Aryan Resistance. We saw this in 1999 with a so-called member of the World Church of the Creator by the name of Benjamin Nathaniel Smith. He was a spree killer. This happened in the summer of in the suburbs of Chicago, where he targeted racial and ethnic minorities, just was killing them in drive-by shootings. And this happened in Indiana, Illinois, and this was on the weekend of July 4th, 1999. I remember this, you know, vividly. And most recently, of course, you have Michael Page, who in 2012 massacred Sikhs in a temple in Wisconsin and was a member of a white power rock band. And then we mentioned, like I said, The Order, And then there was the Aryan Nation, which, another misnomer that Muslims do, they say they want to talk about the atrocities and terrorism of Christians. They always bring up who? Timothy McVeigh. Timothy McVeigh was not a Christian. He was connected with the Aryan nations. And once again, the Aryan nations, they click, you know, these groups, like they have a piece of Christianity, but a lot of the Nordic religion in them. Because this is, you know, you got to remember why they choose the Nordic religion. Because the Viking is the example of the strong white man, you know, going through the lands, taking everything. Wallahi, you know, that's what we got the tattoos of it. I got the tattoos to prove it, because that's what we thought. The strong white man. You know what I'm saying? That's what it was about. So they always followed these religions. And per se, I'm not going to justify any sort of paganism, but it's not really. I know people who were part of it who are not racist, but it took on that way. It took that way on, where it became like the so-called religion of the white supremacist groups. Weapons, attacking individuals, and nothing's done to them. That's the bottom line. So what are some words and phraseologies that you should be aware of concerning these movements? And I don't know, are you going to be able to make that the copy of that?
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to make a copy that we can pass out, that it could, you know, use as kind of a, you know, thing to recognize in the future. You have the word Rahawa. Rahawa means racial holy war. That's one of their phraseologies they use. You have the word, you have what's called 14 words. And the 14 words, which means we must secure the existence of our people and a future for white children. They use numbers. They say 88. And 88 means Hail Hitler. Because the 8 is the H. You see it? The 8th letter is the H. Hail Hitler. You have 18. Obviously Adolf Hitler. You have a group out of Britain that was doing some terrorist activity. I remember I went to Britain in 1999, and right before we went there was a group called Combat 18. They were doing terrorist activities in Brixton. Brixton is, you know, is what they would call the hood over there. And so they were doing, and they did nail bombs and stuff like that, where a child had a nail bomb stuck in its head. And then you have 38, which means Confederate Hammerskins. You have 28, which means Blood and Honor. Blood and Honor is a group out of Britain, a white supremacist group started by this individual, Ian Stewart Donaldson, who's now dead. May Allah give him what he deserves.
Ameen.
Ameen. And what you see is sometimes, you know, even in the dress, just like how the gangs have a style of dress, you see the Bloods dressed this way, the Crips, the Latin Kings, MS-13, etc., etc. Even in the skinhead dress, there's things to tell you. The red laces, we wore boots called Doc Marten boots. And these are British work boots. And if you see red laces in the boots, that represents white power. If you saw, or that he shed blood. And if you see white laces, it stood for like the white pride skinhead. And you see the spiderweb tattoo. And this is it could be a badge of honor often worn on the elbow, indicating he has committed a murder for the skinhead movement. And so, you know, you have the tracking of white supremacists and neo-Nazi groups in the US, and the Southern Poverty Law Center based in Montgomery, they track these groups. And in spring of 2011, reports the rapid rise of hate groups since Obama's 2008 election. So there was a big influx of these groups. Why? Because Obama became president. So they're like, oh, here it goes. We got to prepare. We got to get ourselves together, because now we got because back in the 80s, I remember them saying it. They're saying by 2000, I think 20, the white man will be a minority in America. That's what they would say. That was always that we keep letting these Latinos in, if we keep letting the interracial marriages and this, the white man's going to be a minority. That was the big thing. That was a big thing. And so now you have a president came back like, oh, no, we can't do this. So you had, and this was led by anti-government patriot groups. Radical right groups have expanded dramatically for the second year in a row. There are now over 1,000 such groups in America. And this was 2011, so who knows in 2013 what is going on. And it's not surprising that the also latest count found that the number of hate groups operating in America last year had risen from 1002 from 932 in 2009. And it goes up, it goes up. And let's see, basically, and I'm gonna give you a breakdown of the tri-state area, really primarily the New York area, what we got over here, because we're in New York. You have groups such as the National Association for the Advancement of White People, and this was a group started by David Duke. You know, there was a very sad thing that people did after 9/11. David Duke had put up a thing about 9/11, like talking about how it was this and this and that. And I saw Muslims putting his words up in the paper. This guy's a white supremacist, man. He's a kafir. He's a devil. And Muslims, because we felt so bad, and we wanted some, you know, we wanted to feel better about ourselves. We said, oh, look what David Duke is saying. He's saying it didn't really happen like this. It was done by the Zionists. That's sad, man. That's sad. We don't need him. That's like if homosexuals want to come and march in support for us, and Muslims will embrace it. We have to be left. We're lost. And they're out of Jackson Heights. That's in Jackson Heights, Queens. So if anybody's from Jackson Heights, know you got a group over there. You got the World Church of the Creator, started by Matt Hale. This was that guy. He came from that group who did the spree killing in '99. They're out of Marcy. That's upstate. Underground Skinhead Action in New York. World Church of the Creator in New York. American Knights of the Ku Klux Klan in Newburgh. National Alliance, Peekskill. World Church of the Creator in Sleepy Hollow. Central New York White Pride, Syracuse. Aryan Nations, Aryan National Alliance, Wantor, near where I live in Long Island. New Jersey World Church of the Creator in Bridgetown, New Jersey, Trenton, and Island Heights. The Hammerskin Nation, Harrison. The National Alliance in Hewitt. And the Aryan Nations, Aryan National Alliance in North Bergen. So if anybody's from Jersey too, know you got some neighbors over there as well. So let's go real quick, some examples of attacks and threats made against Muslims. We have on number one, a BNP, British National Party, member is being investigated by police after calling for a South Wales masjid to be burnt down. Joshua Wren, a BNP member from the Swansea area, posted a photograph last night of the masjid and center on his Facebook page, adding, "Burn down this devil's center." Wren removed the picture later, but not before Hope Not Hate took a screen grab and reported the matter to South Wales Police, and that's in Britain. Then you have in Norway, the Norwegian Defense League. We see, we're going to go into the English Defense League, so if you don't know about the English Defense League, you need to get aware of who the English Defense League is. Because they're right now in the forefront of the attacks on Islam in Britain, and guess who's working in cahoots with them? Miss Pamela Geller. They're working in cahoots with them. So much so that Miss Pamela Geller got the head of the founder of the English Defense League, a guy named Tommy Robinson, aka Stephen Lennon, over here illegally. To which he's in jail right now because of him illegally coming into this country. But why is she not in jail? She got an illegal immigrant in here. Let us go and get some Mexicans and bring them across the border. Trust and believe we'll be in jail. See, this is what the double standards. And the role of Anders Behring Breivik. We all know who he is, right? Anders Breivik. He was the guy who went in Norway and he was killed all those kids. The anti-Muslim, inspired by Pamela Geller and Robert Spencer in his manifesto. Following the 2011 Norway attacks on 22nd of July, it was revealed that he was the admitted terrorist Anders Breivik had formerly been a member of this defense league. And he had been identified as a member under the pseudonym Sigurd Jursalfa, after the medieval Norwegian crusader King Sigurd the Crusader. Their first documented initiative for establishing a Norwegian sister organization to the EDL has also originated in a forum posted by Breivik on his website document number on December 6, 2009. There, Breivik proposes to establish a Norwegian version of the English Defense League. And so we have mosque incidences that experience violent or racist incidences. I can't read them all. You know why? Because out of 50 states, there's 42 states with numerous incidences that's happened to masajid. I got pages. I got pages of it. And we still don't have security in our masajid. We have a camera. We have a guy who may stand there. We even hire the kafar to do something, but they don't even care, because I've witnessed it, where they're doing the security and they're doing it laxatively, they're talking on the phone. Yeah, so what's up, baby? How you doing? While there's security going on. This is what we have. So let me give you some New York incidences, so you can rest assured that we definitely need the security for our masajid. We have an elderly man beaten and stabbed when he came to the doors of the Queen Masjid. You all remember that last year? November of 2012. Masjid I go to out in Bayshore, Long Island, it was vandalized, was it 2 times? Yeah. 2 times. Nothing tremendous. After the ambassador in Libya was killed, they did graffiti on the masjid. You know, they had I forget the phraseologies. But it was something, you know, dealing with the, you know, rest in peace ambassador and so on and so forth. You know, nothing tremendous, but still. A firebomb attack on the Shia masjid on Van Wyck. An-Noor Masjid, another masjid out in Long Island, was a nail attack. People kept throwing nails into the parking lot. Signs out of a Buffalo masjid was smashed on 9/11. A burnt Qur'an sent to a Bronx masjid on 9/11. 5 teens were arrested and charged after a shot was fired outside an Orleans County masjid as worshippers were leaving Ramadan. Sheepshead Bay, we all know about Sheepshead Bay and Pamela Geller in the forefront of trying to not let this masjid go up, and it was also defaced with graffiti. Amherst, New York masjid, next door neighbors point signs saying bomb making next driveway. Protesters atop Sheepshead Bay again. We know of the rallies against the quote-unquote Ground Zero Masjid, and some of us, alhamdulillah, we went to one of the rallies, and we didn't go to the side which was the pro-Masjid rally. If Israel fails, we all fail. This is what our movement has built on for the 2 years. So they have, you know, they have this belief. And you know, in the group, you know, like I said, there's football hooligans. There's some Uncle Toms. I've seen some pictures with some blacks in there. You know, some, you know, they don't realize. They have one supporter that's a Sikh, you know, who's against Islam and so on and so forth. And if they don't think that they're going to get, they might get caught up one day and get punched in the face when it all goes down. They got another thing coming. Because, you know, they don't know, oh, I didn't know you were on my team here. I saw your color and I thought you were one of them. And then you have Rabbi Nachum Shifrin, who said, EDL is the salvation of the West from the Muslim dogs. He says this of a group that joins with neo-Nazis in many occasions, such as to stand up against the anti-Jubilee protesters. Back in 2012, they had the Jubilee for the Queen, and so there were people who were obviously protesting, you know, because, you know, you got a lot of anarchists and people who are anti-government, they're anti-monarchy over there. And they stood up. And in the past, these neo-Nazi white supremacist groups have known to be supportive of the struggle, and this is even weird too. They were known to be supportive of the struggle of the Palestinians or even the Mujahideen in Afghanistan during the Soviet invasion. And I bear witness to this because the one group, Screwdriver, they had a song. It was called Invasion. It was about the Mujahideen fighting against the communists, because don't forget, the communists, they don't like the communists either. They don't like, as long as the Afghanis are over in Afghans are in Afghanistan, that's cool. Don't come over here. But they would speak it out against the flow of that. And even I've known from many white supremacist groups, even another group by the name of No Remorse, they wrote a song about pro-Palestinian song. So this is the bizarreness that goes on here. And however, after 9/11, this changed. And we also see through various reports neo-Nazi and gang members joining the U.S. and other nations' militaries to fight in the Middle East. They had a thing on Gangland about it, about the extremist groups and gangs in the Iraq and Afghani war. And there's graffiti of these groups. You see Aryan Nation graffiti, you see obviously gang graffiti, etc., on the walls. And also this is a training ground for them, so they can come back and take care of business, so they can learn how to use their weaponry. And what's better than to kill Muslims? You know, they're not human beings. They're just collateral damage. And they see this as almost a punishment-free way to rid the world of non-whites, especially Muslims. As well, the added bonus is they can learn the paramilitary skills and gun techniques to bring home in their racial holy war. And these individuals see Islam as a cancer to the West, and more particularly, the white race. They have no qualms about attacking masajid, women, elderly, children, and men. To them, we are not human, we are savages and deserving of destruction. And until we see this to ourselves and protect ourselves, and we'll continue to be blind to this. And with that being said, that's more or less my conclusion on this. I pray that it gives us some insight into these groups and some help to understand this thing better, because wallahi azeem, I'm telling you, these guys are not dying down. These guys are not dying down. They are the foot soldiers of these people. They like to use people, you know, they'll be the people that go out in the front line and go out and attack and kill and maim and destroy, because they believe what they're doing is noble. They are the modern day crusaders. You know, they're taking up the banner of, what was his name? King Richard Lionheart against, you know, and so on and so forth. That's how they look. That's how they deem themselves. And with that being said, if there's any, I don't know if we're doing question or anything now, because I don't see Ali or the Imam. But if there's any quick question or something like that, feel free until they come back and try to, you know, give some more insight into it, inshallah. Any questions?
Yeah, question. What about the Muslims becoming very, very productive and, you know, organizing to get our message out there, you know, become professional, you know, do the research to, you know, support the deen? Anything happening, any groundswell of that going on? Or?
Well, I mean, you got groups, you know. I mean, like I seen in England in deference to the English Defense League, they created a Muslim Defense League for one. You know what I'm saying? And they do a lot of dawah work. You know, see, that's the whole thing. Is that, you know, we have to call the people to the truth, number one. And it's always good to do it in a group, in Jama'ah, and also to call the people to what these falsehoods are. See, what we like to do as Muslims, we always love to be against the fence. We always love to be like, you know, when meaning that whenever we're taking the task, we're okay. We're never on the offense, we're always on the defense. You know, it's like one time I witnessed down in the village, there was some guys giving dawah, knowledge of current affairs. Muslims like to think that if you have knowledge of current affairs, it sometimes takes away from the ilm that we get from Qur'an and Sunnah. But if you look at the Qur'an and you look at the Sunnah, they were dealing with the current affairs of that time. You're dealing with the current affairs. We have to understand what's going on in this world. We can't be naive to think that we are not. You know, if somebody is coming to your house to beat you up, you don't say, well, I don't want to know about it. You want to be aware about it. So we have to know who these groups are and we have to bring out the message. We have to tell people about this message. And like I said, you know, and as Muslims, I think it's high time, you know, and one thing I got to give the brothers in Britain, and I've said this to the brothers in Britain that I've met. I said, man, I love you all, man. I said, y'all go toe to toe with these guys in the street. You don't like run and call the police, and then you go toe to toe. You stand up for yourself. You stand up to protect yourselves. And I love that and I love that about them. But, you know, may Allah make us more like that, because you know what? We have to, you know, defend our women, our children, ourselves. We don't give them, say, well, look, I'm going to tell you about Islam. I'm going to give you a dawah pamphlet while you're beating up my wife and me. Let me give you dawah. You know what I'm saying? No. Part of dawah may come in an old skinhead adage we used to call a boot party. You know, where you give somebody a beat down with your boots. You know, because you might have to do that. But we have to protect ourselves. And we have to make a clear message. And you know what? And we have to be upon the correctness. As long as we continue to be on, like what the Sheikh was talking about, making comments like the Sharia is this and that, and making unholy alliances with these kuffar and other groups, then, you know, we won't have our dua answered. We'll be looked at as the one thing that I notice is that we lack respect because we don't have respect for ourselves. So, you know, and we need to get up on doing that, inshallah.
Yeah, there is the group that is monitoring these negative ads when they put it up. They put up also signs to combat the negative posters that are going up around the city.
Yeah.
That's one group. The next question I want to ask you is, in this area here, Pennsylvania, Connecticut, around other states, where's this base group of hate groups coming out from? Where's the main group from? Pennsylvania?
Well, there's a lot of, there's a lot of groups, like back in the day, to give you a little background, when I was into the skinhead scene, the New York City area had a lot of skinheads. Brooklyn, Manhattan, we all used to meet like in the Village. They used to have a club down on the Lower East Side called CBGB's. So we used to go there and meet there. And so you had, believe it or not, you had a lot of Puerto Rican skinheads. You had a lot of black skinheads. You had a lot of white skinheads. And we didn't tolerate neo-Nazis. They used to get, they'd get beat down. And there was a story that I remember when I was in Florida, because in Florida we had Cuban skinheads and Arab skinheads. Wallahi, this guy, and he was an Arab, he was a Muslim. I'm telling you. And so they had the neo-Nazis that came down from Orlando, or Tampa, excuse me. And the guy took off his shirt, he had the Iron Eagle on his back. And so the skinheads saw that, and they stuck him and broke the knife off into him. Because they didn't tolerate Nazis. And so and even to add to the disgrace, when they took the guy in the ambulance, they drove in front of the ambulance slow, so they wouldn't allow him to get there. But see, in the New York area, they didn't tolerate. But you had pockets of individuals that were into that, out of New Jersey and parts of New York. They were undercover. You know what I'm saying? And in Philadelphia, places like this, there was these incidences. You know, these groups that come out, these white supremacist, neo-Nazi, skinhead groups. But to really, target them, they're more pockets than anything. But they meet, they get together. You know what I'm saying? They spread their, see, this is all, all correct. It's like I tell brothers all the time, y'all don't hear what I hear when y'all are not around. You got to hear the language that they use. And I defend it. I mean, I go against them. Sometimes I make these guys feel like idiots. Sometimes I just say, okay, I'm just going to give a pass for ignorance. But the bottom line is this: there is a serious race problem going on with people, and they'll be prone to follow into those groups. So we have to, we have to do with that. The sister had a question. One second.
I just like to ask you personally, coming from that group, how do you
the Black Panthers and so on and so forth, and it brought me to Islam. So it took me. It's a transition, and also, on another note, the oddest thing of all is since I was 3, my stepfather was black. I was raised, but I just went through a period of my time where I said, I want to find out about myself through race. And unfortunately, we do that sometimes. And so, but it only was a few years, and then I said, you know what, this is dumb. This is dumb. What? You're white power? The white man has got that? No. The white, come on, seriously. Even as a minority, they still they're holding all the cards. So, but for me, it was a good to purchase out of myself, because at this day and time, anybody asks me, I am beyond, I am beyond anti-nationalist. Anybody who exhibits any form of nationalism, I don't care if black nationalism, white nationalism, Pakistani nationalism, Arab, I'm against it. I fight against it. I speak out against it, because I hate it. I despise it. It's the Prophet saw something despise it. I despise it. And that's how we should be, because it's not based on that. So that's my transition, to come from that. But what I like to do is, I'm not shy to bring this up, because I think we need to learn from this. Because we need to learn from this. And there's people that have been, I've read about brothers who came into Islam that were former clan members and so on and so forth. They were further into this thing than I ever was, sure. But, but we need to know these things. We need to be aware of these things, because they have the other side of the thing where the Muslim loves to be so open-armed when somebody embraces Islam. And who's to say some guy might not come in to say, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, and he wants to be an infiltrator. And he wants to get close. Example, people like situations with Imam Luqman in Detroit and stuff like that. And individuals and other individuals. We have to be careful. We have to be careful, you know what I'm saying? So, because they will send, people to try to infiltrate and pretend, because we as Muslims, what? We're good-hearted. We embrace somebody, especially somebody who's a quote-unquote oddity to the coming of Islam. If we're used to see the status quo of African Americans come to Islam, even whites now. So now, we alhamdulillah, we see an influx of Latinos and other people, you know what I'm saying? So we're like, oh, that's exciting. So we have to be careful. We have to be careful. I'm not saying we judge, no. We just got to be cautious, because these groups exist, and they're strong, and they are training on a regular. They're ready. They're looking for the reason. So, that's really it. Anything else?
That's why we got to have more than one forum, because there's so much, especially Brother Yusuf, him and I, and he's been with the Imam for years, and he has so much information, pertinent information. He's inside, just like like African Americans talk about what's going on in the hood, in other areas. Black nationalists, former black nationalists can tell you what's going on in certain areas. Former police officers can tell you what's going on in areas. He has a mountain full of information. So inshallah, I want to bring up, inshallah, we want to hear from certain areas. We got a representative from the sisters that's going to come up and give her take, because we always got to hear from the other half of us. Sisters, let me tell you something. I mean, brothers, you know, when we call the sisters to do, in some instance, they outshining the brothers. You know what I mean? And we have to give them their prompt. You know, we have examples in the Sunnah about some of the sisters that before it was forbidden for women to participate in jihad. We had some women that, you know, like sister like Nasiba radiallahu anha, you know, who when they were running from the Messenger of Allah in Hud, she took the sword up and came, and she was, you know, the Prophet ﷺ said, every which way he turned, she was there, guarding his back, guarding his front side, taking on the wounds. So we got some, you know, we got some warriors, you know, within our midst. And you remember with the sisters, inshallah, is that, you know, if we had to go out and defend the front, they have to remain